Okay, then let's make a start. I think we're probably all back. So our next speaker then is Gerald Cramp, who's ex-president of the KS. Yeah. Yes. He's going to talk to us about trying to preserve some of these. We've heard a lot about archives, which is the paper archive. Gerald's actually actively engaged trying to salvage some of these existing archives that go back to the 70s, maybe the 60s in some places. There's a tremendous amount of stuff out there spread to the four winds, which we need to try and put it in. Anyway, over to you, Gerald. Where you go?
Okay, well, thanks very much, Keith. I mean, we've known each other a long time, so that's great. So we've both got quite big archives. That's the one thing we're going to need at some stage. So it's been quite a few years that I've been involved with saving. I'm trying to save archives in one way or another. They're all different. You can see that in a moment. Let's see if I can get this to work. Yep. Yes, so if you can see that. So these are some of the more recent ones. Brian Faggy left the society some money, and that's been useful in some research. But the big thing that I had in there was to find a home for a complete set of Archaeology Campiana. Not to get something quiet, but get somebody to accept it. Anyway, that was achieved. Peter Tester, he was a well-known archaeologist in the Bexley area, in the Dartford area, and on the Medway. Produced a fantastic number of books, and his daughter came in one day into the museum and said, "I'm sorting out my loft, and I still had some of my dad's stuff." Well, they included a couple of Artunian hand axes and things like that. And the thing was, you get them in a proper place. So that was Peter Tester. Colonel Meeks. Yes, I was. Well, that was my first site, was Livingstone. And I was given a talk in Crayford about the excavations at Livingstone from 1949 to 1961. And in the audience was one of the chaps who helped to clear his archives from the flat at Livingstone Castle. He presented me with some notebooks and photographs of where he lived and things like this. So it was a very interesting personal archive for Colonel Meeks, not the side you would actually expect with their own bill of material. And then Alec Miles, very, very different. I had to go down to Biddenden for that. And the house was stuffed full of fragments of Roman pottery. I mean, it was stuffed full of Roman pottery. Fortunately, the KS has that now, mainly obtained from excavations on the North Kent marshes, but they've all been different. So I'm not going to talk at length about any of those, just to give you a flavour of how different they are. But I'm going to talk a bit about Brian Tremaine. He lived in Hartley and had a very distinguished career, not just as an archaeologist. We've talked about people having life outside archaeology. Yes, his life was photography. He was an eminent photographer. We're going to look at some of the work he'd done. He worked for four major museums: the Science Museum, the V&A, the National Maritime, and the British Museum, finishing there as principal photographer. Quite a lot of archive. He died about 10 years ago. His widow is now in a home, and his three sons came out and he said, "Can you help me sort out Dave's photographs? I have never seen so many photographs in all my life. They came in all shapes and sizes. They were both positives and negatives and 35 mils. I think we're all of an age remember taking 35 mils stuff. Those that haven't, that's what they look like. That's what they start out like. Replaced by that. But yes, so an incredible archive of photographs of quite hard to sort out. He worked on the Brazen Bow. And you say, sorting out an archive? These are all photographs. I don't mean the odd one or two, and I know there are plenty here that Keith has not seen before, one way or another. The one on the right was on the left was published, and I think that the one on the right is new to Keith and is new to most people. But I'm talking about a couple of dozen prints of this size. He printed his own photographs at home and experimented with them. So, might find one image, then he will print it in a different way. Same image, I've got 2 or 3 different prints of it. Incredible. Maybe we're talking about saving these for posterity because they're very different from a digital copy. It was involved with trying to call this logboat off sea salter. It was dated in Roman. It lay between the high water mark and the low water mark. So he didn't have much of a chance to examine it. But yes, you see sea salter in the distance there. That's how that one started out. So what you're seeing on the screen is one of those. And that's a great source of photographs in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I've put this one on because those of you knew about archaeology in that period would know the gentleman, well, Keith and I know him very well, Brian Phil, a very controversial figure in the archaeological world, didn't like other people taking photographs of his site. He obviously didn't take this one, he's the one with the hat in the middle. This is sort of Darren's Roman villa. He excavated another building in 1972. First dug in the 1890s, and that's an incredible source of information. Most people believe that from the 1895 excavation, there's about 10 photographs published in Archaeology 2 or 3 years later. However, George Payne, first curator of Rochester Museum, and his records and finds went there. There wasn't a museum at all at that time. And yes, find that there's at least 70 photographs from the 1890s excavation. Incredible source. The KAS has a small collection of about 30, which few people know about. Fantastic. One of the biggest Roman villas in the area, with a span of 300 feet, 100 meters, and about in the 1890s, they found 100 rooms. That's a big place. But this, one of 2 reasons, shows how important it's actually to take photographs of historic buildings. It's a Wilton Hall House in Southfleet, and that's that comes to us as a negative. Not your 35mm negative comes as one of those. That was the incredible bit about what Ryan did. Everything came different. Incredible photographer, also an archaeologist. He knew what he was looking at. But yes, that was before restoration. The next 2, I think it's just one I've done. That shows you how little was left in the restoration, almost a rebuild actually. And it looks a lovely wooden farmhouse now. Now that flip photograph shows how little of it actually survived the so-called restoration. But yes, he went around photographing anything. It was incredible. we've been discussing, you know, where to put the archives. The Archaeological Archive, Maidstone Museum, been going on, I think, founded 1858. One of the earliest museums in Kent, not the earliest. And I put the covers of 2 guidebooks. Well, they're here if you want to look at them. Well, they're originals, which I want to find a good home for, especially the earlier one, because I don't think there is a copy around with the cover. Be careful with it, open it up. There's a lovely photograph, sitting photograph, which at that period was the only way of including photographs in books. But yes, the clay has a long, what's the word I want, involvement with Maidstone Museum, in that it had a room there since 1868. We were founded in 1858. And that's recorded in that first guide, quite nicely. Archaeological Society. But we've had a long, that says, helping preserve the heritage of Kent since 1857. Can anyone help me justify 1857? In the room?
It's when we had our first meeting.
Yes, no, I'm talking about preserving the heritage. Something that the clay has preserved, which we still have in Dover. In Dover Castle.
Oh, Dover Lighthouse.
No.
No?
No, the next door. St.
Oh, the
Mary
church.
Hospital. That was scheduled for demolition at that time, and representation were made by Larkin to not put it down. So that was the first thing we've saved, going back 1857, 1858. So that's really quite nice. That was an extra bit. I put that guide in. It was written by a former member of us, Alan Grove, who was curator. But at that time, it was thought not to be a museum for Maidstone, but a museum for Kent. Yeah, Nigel Yates, in his article about Kent, says this is a museum for Kent. Of course, we haven't got one now. And that's where I'm hoping today we might start to push that a bit better on. Yeah, 1953, 2 or 3. I found it anyway. Museums, you mentioned we got a lot. I did write down how many actually in that one. 57, but in there. So that's the current guide to museums in Kent. I was trying to find out whether the Kent Museum, if you can read this. This was published by the Kent Museum Group in 1976. Do we know whether that's still going?
There is a Kent Museum group. Whether they do any publication, I don't know.
Well, there's a little window on their website that said that it's perhaps not going on.
No, it still exists. In a way.
Okay, go and check their website. But yes. And the Kent County Council had a museum service. So see the things that we've had in the past, but we're not getting now. I think it's important for us to start to realise the importance of what we're actually doing today is trying to bring that to the head. But not to forget local history. The Kent Archaeological Society was set up for archaeology, as we understand it, but it included other subjects in 1858, included local history, included family history, especially landed gentry family history. But yes, so as a society, we mustn't forget about saving local history all around Kent. And someone mentioned it was a big place, about 60 miles east-west, and about 40, 50 bars. I mean, my 1-inch map of Kent is 6 foot by 4 foot. But yes, so it's a big place to get round, but we mustn't forget about the local history we've actually got. And you know, the middle one will guide to the collection that Sevenoaks Library had, and all local, the big libraries, the big district libraries like Dartford, Gravesham and Dover, all produced their guides to local histories. That seems to have vanished. And we mentioned the archives at the end. How much more are they going to take? One thing I give talks on ordnance survey maps, the big ones, you know, the pre-war big ones, the 25-inch. I know some of you have seen this. You know what I'm talking about, are you? Yes? I'll ask a question. How many do you think you need to cover Kent for one edition of that map? Who said?
You just said a lot.
You've been in number terms.
Several hundred, actually.
Several hundreds. Any advance from several hundreds? It's thousands for each edition. Kent is split up into about 70 parts for that map. There are 16 maps to each part. It's over 1,000 for each edition. They had first edition, second edition, 1895, third, 1910, up to the war year. And that's before you get to post-war. So you've got about 5 editions, each requiring at least 1,000 maps for the county of Kent. So you can imagine the amount of room you need for each map physically that by there. So how much more are we going to get in the Kent History Centre? Especially, I mean, I thought that was going to be a source for working out the history of the excavations at Luddingstone and Roman Villa. I knew an account being some memories have been deposited. I was told that by the family, but I couldn't find them. So yes, I'll put this one. Chris Bull wrote this history of Gravesend Library. Fantastic account, and it really gives an interesting account of how regional library is developed. But he was really into making sure that local history was preserved. He's an advocate of local history, now outside the library. Was a county librarian, but now he works outside that. But yes. This bit's up for a bit of fun to finish off with. Yeah. Oh, this is when the Kent Archaeological Society's AGM took 2 days. I don't think many people realise that. Yeah, so we've got a programme for Wednesday, August the 1st. I didn't have enough room to put Thursday, August the 2nd. They went round and round, so it's 1883. So obviously the annual meeting was to be held on the August the 1st and August the 2nd. And these are fun items, I think. I've got a whole watch of these when the AGM took 2 days. And it's lovely to make sure that these sorts of things are preserved. Now, that's a personal item, yes. Put it there if you want to look at it. But they're lovely items, and it's the ephemera of our society that we also need to preserve. Basically, yeah. Now what I've shown you are items from my own personal collection. I've got 2 daughters who are not interested. I shall be 81 later on this year. So I've got to find good homes for this lot. And there's a whole bundle of those that I've acquired over the years. I think that's the last slide. Yeah, it must be the last slide.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
yes.
okay.
So that's my presentation to you. I've hoped it's raised some issues of what we need to preserve, how we need to preserve it, mainly on the documentary side. And you're quite welcome to come and have a look. That's an early guide to Maidstone Museum, which I showed you the cover of. Fascinating, and it talks about the Kent Archaeological Society group as there. This one, which I showed you, lovely, showed you in the photograph Brian Phil at his excavations at the Roman Villa of Darren, which in itself a very large villa. Open comments, questions, things like that. Yes.
It's something that really affects me at the moment because we are trying to sort out the trust. We went starting with the material finds, and now I'm moving to sort out the paper archive. And something that I realized recently, there's no standard for what is the paper archive for a site. Something that I really struggle with because you have the primary archive, so you produce the context sheets, you produce the drawings, you produce everything, but then you have everything in the post-excavation part. And there was a period when people were printing everything, emails, correspondence, everything that was related or a similar site or everything for reference, it comes into this massive folders. And you end up with about 40 folders for each site. And we have, since the trust was founded, I am now to the number almost 6,000 sites since we started. So you have to imagine how many folders we have. And I was trying to find out how can we reduce this and what is important, what we keep about each site. Those tiny slides gave me PTSD because we digitize so many of them lately. And some of the archive is quite organized. I'm moving Keith's archive from Dover and it's incredibly organized, but it's rare. But then it's everything else. And there's actually no guidelines like we find or standards of what we should keep and preserve for each site.
Yes.
With the standard, because we have, and it's incredibly unstandardized in the sites. It's not something you can put in the folder. We used to record and do these drawings of massive permatrist papers. Like it's something that we keep in tubes, and the tubes don't stack very well. And it's a matter of space. And it's there's actually not much there of what we keep and what the museum or societies can accept as paper.
Well, you haven't got a map chest then.
We do. We have a few of them. We have a few of those, but there's not enough space to keep those test maps.
Yeah. No, storage of everything
Yeah.
is an important issue. What we actually keep, what we discard, and the trouble is, if you discard the original. I mean, for example, there's not much written on these, except it says sea salter dugout and wrecks Brian Tremaine. But you do, when you go inside, you find out when this cassette was processed, which is a good indicator of the date. But yes, then you just go for the digital record. You can create a digital record quite easily from those. Nicely, with almost the size of a camera, like that. That's what Brian got from me. And make a good digital image for use in talks and for preserving the information. But then what you do with that, and what do I do with this lot here?
They
Google
speak to each other, unfortunately, after a while.
Yes. And then you've got, and I deliberately brought some original bits that I've got. And I've got a whole sheet of these KS annual meetings, as they were called. And it's what's to happen to those.
Gerald, what has KAS got then?
I don't think they have.
Well,
Luckily, it's not it's not an archaeological object.
No,
It's Craig's problem.
That's what I was going to say. It isn't an archaeological object.
No, but we do have an archive. We have an
Yeah.
archivist,
Yes.
which lovingly I can pass this dilemma on to him. Because it is material that if it is the only copy that we have, we should be keeping.
Yes.
The question is then, when we have duplicate copies or digital and physical, like with the 35mm slides, we've got hundreds in our archive. We've got glass plate negatives, which do have a slightly nasty habit of potentially exploding. They've got silver nitrate in them. So you need the right storage for them. It can be, I mean, the 35mm slides, you can buy a digitizer for that, and not very much.
Yes.
The glass plates, bit more tricky.
Yes.
Same with radiographs. We've got X-rays in our collection, which I'm starting to digitize, because they are a brilliant resource for looking at Anglo-Saxon metalwork and things like that. But again, once I've digitized it, do I keep that? Do I remove it? Does it fall under my role as curator? Does it fall under the archivist position? Same with archaeological archives. Really, we should be keeping them all together. Finds and paper archives should be kept in one place. But storage-wise, can't do that.
But the important point is, Kent Archaeological Society was founded in 1858. But part of its collection, even from then, was not only what we regard as archaeological.
Yeah.
It included local history.
Yeah.
And it included
We've got historical furniture. We've got 18th century casts from people going on the Grand Tour and that sort of thing.
Yes.
We've got 35mm slides of people who've gone on KAS excursions to foreign museums and taken pictures of things.
Yes. There's a whole archive there.
Yeah.
Gerald, the meeting that you mentioned, got the photograph there for the original. Was it held?
So this. Oh, this one.
Yeah, the August one was all over Ashford.
Yeah, this is the yeah, this is the Ashford one.
Yes.
Yes, certainly.
It's not.
I think it's the front pages. Let's go. There'll be a gap, I know. Because the society did hold them all over them. And the ancient county of Kent, including Bromley and Crystal Palace.
Gerald, there's a project along that Mola are running a project along the Kent coast, the Kent marshes.
Yeah.
And they want photographs.
Yeah, the
Right.
Coast in Mind project. I can send you Harry's email.
Oh, right, okay,
But
yes.
they're
Yeah,
interested in all photographs and information. If you know where it is, it's even better.
yeah. Well, there's some here. It depends what they mean by the coast. To include coast.
Yeah, it's the Swale Estuary is their main Kent.
The seaside,
Oh, that's right.
along the edge of the water.
Oh, the sea silk, yes. Well, there's that from Coupon. Sea, and there's another boat in that. Yeah.
Thank you, Gerald. That's really.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying the Kent Archaeological Society meetings, not only to the last 2 days, they included big grand dinners.
That was a nice place.
Private trains, yes. Where we go today. And it's all done in horse and cart, of course.
Yeah, it's a different idea there.
Absolutely, yeah, well, it's a different society, you know. If you look at who's going, it's like something.
Yeah. No,
I've got one more question at the end there.
Yeah, just quickly, to move on then.
Comment, but I'd like to thank Gerald for the work he's doing collecting this stuff. Because, for instance, at the Darren Valley T-Bomb that I mentioned earlier, we've catalogued a whole lot of Roman finds from Roman Field in Oxford. We had no idea what they were. They were HEHC. Through Gerald's kind auspices, he's managed to find someone who's not very well, who had masses of these archives, given them to Gerald, who's given them to us. We can now marry together the paper archive and the physical archive, which we couldn't do until this reappeared. So it's quite reassuring because sometimes things do come back, and even boxes where getting boxes periodically coming back, somebody saying, we're here, you're working on this. So we're getting boxes back with the others, things get spread out.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably-
Attics and garages.
Probably worth bearing in mind that there's an awful lot of this sort of material scattered across Kent. So if anyone sees an archive, anything that's likely to be dumped because the previous owners just died or something like that, grab it, look after it, get hold of us, and we'll try and find an appropriate home for it, because there's an awful lot gets lost. You know,
You heard that, Andy, come from him.
Yeah, I did hear that. Which I think nicely segues us into this topic.
Thank you, Gerald.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Gerald.
Okay. I'll leave these on the table for the moment.
Yeah, I think that works well. So yeah, that does nicely segue into, should the Kent Archaeological Society be setting up a museum of Kent archaeology and history?